Hello YouTube and welcome to my ranking for my favorite games of 2021. I am BrooklynB_JP, also known as just Brooklyn, localization specialist and Twitch streamer. Be sure to check the description because I've left the rules for which games are eligible for this list. And as always, if you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. With that being said, let's get into the list. Quick shout out, Game Builder Garage. Well, perhaps this isn't actually getting into the list, but I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention Game Builder Garage. This is not a game that would make it onto my list by normal standards. I can't say I enjoyed it in the same way that I enjoyed the games that I'm about to talk about. However, as an educational experience about game development, this game is quite robust, and I had a very good time learning about the types of things developers have to consider when making a video game. Sure, Game Builder Garage is not going to make you into a developer just like that, but it is certainly a great way to dip your toes into the development waters. If you're at all curious about how game development works, and you would like to try it out a bit yourself, Game Builder Garage can be an accessible way to make that happen. Number 10. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. If you've seen my review, you'd know I have quite a few gripes with this game related to the amount and timing of dialogue, and general lack of polish. Still, my overall experience with the game was good. There's a great story here about dealing with loss, and your heart would have to be made of stone to not at least feel a bit of the emotional impact. The character development is palpable, and the friendship built amongst the Guardians can be seen in the story and the gameplay. While some say the combat is lackluster, I was a fan of it myself, especially because there are so many options that allow you to adjust it to your playstyle and preferred difficulty. And I must note that it was nice to see that the decisions you make along the way actually influence how the story plays out. If you're looking for a linear, 20-hour, story-driven game, Guardians of the Galaxy might be the place to look. Number 9. Famicom Detective Club. Because it is possible to purchase the two remakes together, I'm just gonna go ahead and throw them both into one slot. I'll preface my positive remarks with this. These are remakes of games from a series that was released in 1988. As a result, the age will show in some of the gameplay. Despite that, these visual novels are a great time for any fans of detective stories and visual novels in general. They have engaging stories that don't overstay their welcome, accompanied by beautiful art, a great soundtrack, and voice acting. The collection of characters is diverse, and I personally grew an attachment to a few of them. I think as long as you go into the experience knowing that you will have to overcome some gameplay mechanics of old, you can fully enjoy your playthrough of the two Famicom Detective Club games. Number 8. New Pokemon Snap. Whether or not this is nostalgia talking, I couldn't possibly say, but nothing beats seeing the Pokemon we know and love in their natural habitat. That has always been the magic that the original Pokemon Snap offered, and New Pokemon Snap does the same on a larger scale. I will admit that New Pokemon Snap asks a lot more of the player in terms of grinding. That is, you will end up playing the same stage many times. However, as a player who enjoys playing the same sequence while making small adjustments, the puzzle-style gameplay that New Pokemon Snap offers is perfect for me. I love the satisfaction of finally figuring out how to get a Pokemon to do their 4-star pose. I love finally capturing that one fleeting shot that seemed impossible because the subject of the photo would not provide an easy opportunity. I realize that the grinding necessary to play this game is not for everyone, but it certainly is for me. Number 7. Halo Infinite Multiplayer. I'll be honest here, I don't play a lot of first-person shooters. I couldn't possibly give you the most intellectual rundown of why Halo Infinite's multiplayer is so good. What I do know is that this game has the most important element. It's just pure fun. Experimenting with the variety of weapons is great, and unleashing on your enemies with an energy sword or a gravity hammer will never get old. The addition of the grappling hook was nothing short of genius. Zipping across the stage to finish off your opponent with a melee attack has the flash and feel to make you want to keep playing forever. The few complaints I have about the game do almost nothing to diminish my enjoyment of going head-to-head with my fellow players. Number 6. Shin Megami Tensei 5. A turn-based RPG with innovative combat mechanics will always catch my attention. I realize Shin Megami Tensei has been using a system similar to Shin Megami Tensei 5 for some time now, but as someone new to the series, those combat mechanics did catch my attention. And as expected, they allowed for dozens of hours of enjoyment. Sure, I didn't find the story, characters, or level designs to be very interesting, but as someone who is so focused on gameplay, the collecting and fusing of demons, the strategizing, and the adjusting of my skills and weaknesses carried the 85-hour experience for me. I hope to play a Shin Megami Tensei game in the future that offers a bit more in terms of elements unrelated to the combat, but as my first from the series, Shin Megami Tensei 5 felt like a good introduction. Number 5, Pokemon Unite. A quick disclaimer though, this game does have microtransactions and loot box mechanics in addition to a battle pass. If you're a player that generally needs to avoid games with these mechanics, I do not recommend Pokemon Unite to you. Another first for me this year was the MOBA genre, and as an introduction, I think Pokemon Unite does a pretty good job. It's a game with fairly simple mechanics, and the 10-minute time limit for each match makes the game easy to pick up and to put down. Not to mention, I get to play as characters I already know, giving me another incentive to jump in. And boy, am I glad I did. I've put an embarrassing amount of hours into Pokemon Unite, and I think there are 2 reasons for this. The 5 classes of Pokemon generally feel different enough so that I can choose a Pokemon to play depending on how I feel that day. And even when I've put countless hours into one particular Pokemon, I can see and feel myself improving with every game. While I am aware that it'd be near impossible to get every Pokemon while staying free to play, a player that isn't committed to getting every Pokemon will be able to build a satisfying collection of Pokemon to choose from. We've also seen that the developers are willing to implement new maps and NPC Pokemon for different seasons. Now we just have to wait for better representation of each Pokemon generation. We get it already. Gen 1ers have the most money to spend. Now stop catering to them, please! Number 4. Metroid Dread. This is a game that I thought would be my number 1 after finishing it because of just how fun the gameplay is. In fact, I think Metroid Dread is the perfect example of a game that puts gameplay first. Yes, the other elements are still impressive. For example, you've got cutscenes of Samus looking badass, you've got animations that really tell you about her character. And while I think the elements unrelated to gameplay are well made, they certainly feel minimalistic. It's obvious that gameplay is front and center, and man is it good. Samus's movement is so snappy. You'll be zooming from one side of the room to the other in no time and with no problem. The mastery of that movement also makes it so that the enemies aren't too frustrating. No other game I played this year feels as good to just run around in. And that's not even the best part of the experience. The combat is genuinely challenging. As soon as the pre-battle cutscene finishes seamlessly offering you a hint for how to tackle the enemy in front of you, you are left to figure out the rest on your own. Though you may see the game over screen quite a few times during your playthrough, if you're anything like me, you'll be well satisfied once you learn all the boss's tells and blast your way past them. The cherry on top of this experience for me, though, was the final optional Shine Spark puzzles. I'm aware that these puzzles do leave some feeling frustrated, but the pure joy I felt naturally picking up on new, unspoken mechanics of the game makes Metroid Dread an experience I would 100% recommend to any player looking for a good challenge. Number 3. Chicory, A Colorful Tale. It's an unfortunate sentiment, but often enough, you'll hear someone say that video game developers are unable to write good stories. Chicory flies in the face of that criticism. Not only is the story powerful, but all of the elements of the game are well made, and they come together to create a cohesive, unforgettable experience. For those of you that do not know, Chicory is a game where you play in a charming world that allows you to color almost anything on screen. You can choose to create the world in your image, and this ability to paint the world blends perfectly with the themes and gameplay. Being an artist means that you constantly face criticism, and try to find a balance between creating what you want to create and meeting the expectations of others. Controlling an artist in Chicory makes it the perfect game to explore its hard-hitting themes like imposter syndrome and what it means to be successful. Other heavier themes like dealing with depression harmoniously fit their way into the narrative. Learning about the characters in the world of Chicory and seeing them deal with their struggles means you are likely to remember them for a long time to come. And while Chicory tells a gripping story, it still has great puzzles, platforming, and battles. The puzzles are head-scratchers with satisfying solutions. The platforming is enough to put your skills to the test, and the battles are incredible with amazing music. I should note that there aren't any overworld enemies to face, but when you get to the bosses, there'll be enough of a challenge to make up for it. And luckily, if you're not looking to have a hard time with the bosses, you can adjust the settings to make the experience much easier for you. With Chicory being a short game at a low price, there's no excuse not to try it out. Number 2. Bravely Default 2. I mentioned earlier that innovative gameplay mechanics are the way to get me into a turn-based RPG, and Bravely Default has always offered that to me. The ability to give up turns to attack extra times, or bank your attacks for a future turn, hasn't gotten old, and, in my opinion, is one of the most engaging mechanics in any turn-based RPG. In fact, I put over 100 hours into Bravely Default 2, and I never felt bored. That isn't only because of the Brave mechanic though. The job system gives you so much variety that you can constantly come up with new, viable setups for your team throughout the game. It's as if the concept of open world has snuck its way into the battle system. The goal of each battle is obvious, but how you get there is completely up to you. Mastering these systems eventually leads to boss battles that will have you furrowing your brow in quizzical amusement. You will constantly ask yourself, how in the world do I defeat these enemies? And if you're anything like me, you will find entertainment in solving that puzzle. Add on the fact that the battle themes are absolutely amazing, and you won't even mind getting stomped here and there because it means you can listen to that battle theme again. With few exceptions, Revo delivers an outstanding soundtrack. The writing can be genuinely funny, although I wouldn't say it's doing anything super impressive. The story is interesting enough and hits those meta beats just like any Bravely Default game. There may be some run-of-the-mill JRPG elements here and there, but the combat carries this game all the way through to the end. And for anyone who hasn't played any Bravely Default games, there's no need to worry. Bravely Default 2's story is completely unrelated to the other games in the series, so if you want to jump in with this entry, there would be nothing stopping you. And my number 1 for Game of the Year 2021. The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Okay, let's start with the things you need to know. Number 1, Ace Attorney is one of my favorite series of all time. Number 2, I played through the Japanese versions of Great Ace Attorney a while back, and I played through most of the English versions again this year, in addition to watching several streamers play through the games. And number 3, the Great Ace Attorney's story is completely separate from the rest of the games in the series. That last point is pretty important, not only because that means you can jump in even if you disliked previous games in the series, but because while the earlier games make use of some supernatural elements to tell their stories, the Great Ace Attorney has a relatively more realistic narrative to tell, albeit with some more obvious anime tropes. To add on to that, in its new historical setting, the games are not afraid to confront classism, sexism, or racism. The more somber mood does a lot for telling a more engaging, serious, and impactful story. At the same time, however, the Great Ace Attorney does not forget its roots. The writing is hilarious, the characters are well developed, and the twists will blow your mind. The localization is, without exaggeration, maybe the best localization I've seen in a video game. Although, you may want to keep a dictionary handy. The character designs are stunning, and the oh-so-loved fan service and objectification of women you'll find in a lot of games that make use of anime aesthetics is non-existent, as far as I can tell as a man. The two games work together to tell one of the best stories in the Ace Attorney franchise to date, even if the first game is admittedly slow. Still, if you view both games as one, your expectations will be perfectly set. And don't you forget about the music. Ace Attorney is known to have some of the best music in all of gaming. That's not based on any research or anything, just let me have this, okay? Anyway, the music in this game will knock your proverbial socks right off. When you're through with the game, you'll want to keep listening to the soundtrack over and over. All in all, The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is not an experience I will ever forget. And I wish I could. As much as I love the characters I went through such a long journey with, I would love to naively go through all the twists and turns one more time. But alas, I must accept that I may not have another experience like playing the great Ace Attorney for years and years to come. That's going to be my top 10 ranking for 2021. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you have any questions about any of the games I talked about, be sure to let me know, and I'll answer. Also be sure to like and subscribe, and if you can, while you're at it, follow me on Twitch and Twitter. You can find the links in the description. I appreciate any support you can offer. Thank you so much for watching through to the end, and I hope to see you on the next video. Take care,